Hi folks, welcome to the Mayor's Desk following our latest monthly council meeting. Thought I'd start with a few updates that were in our agenda, information I'm sure you will be interested in hearing about. First of all, our airport. You would know by now that with Qantas changing the size aircraft within the next 12 months, our airstrip will need to be modified and upgraded. We have an independent analyst right now looking at what is going to be required. We are waiting on a full report. Once we know that, we'll be able to cost it, and we will be going to the federal and state governments. We acknowledge that our ratepayers cannot afford that sort of money. A very early report suggests that we won't have to completely rebuild the strip, but the amount of work is still to be identified. So that is something we will let the community know as and when we get more information. Next, our Cuttlefish Coast projects. For this past financial year, all that work has been completed. And just recapping, the lighthouse cottages, they are back up and running. And I do have to make it clear to our community that it was never feasible to return the cottages to bulk bunk style accommodation. The amount of money that has to be invested to preserve those cottages needs to develop and give the ratepayers a return for that investment. So it always had to be a new style of cottage to attract more visitors to Whyalla. The Black Point stairs installation and viewing platform, really doing well. A lot more people going out to the Cuttlefish at that site. And as you would all be aware, stage 1 of our dive site safety upgrades was completed just in time for our season. Yes, we always knew the car parking would be inadequate. We had to work within the money that we had. Fantastic outcomes in that development for the amount of funding that was available. So what happens now? And yes, we know there's other work that needs to be done out along the coast there. More roads need to be sealed, more facilities. And yes, we will still have to go back to the dive site to see how we can solve some additional problems. But it is fantastic. We have had thousands of people from interstate, overseas, and our locals, which is fantastic, visiting and viewing the Cuttlefish this season. Our Foreshore Plaza, we previously announced that the grant funding we were seeking, we didn't get. We are pursuing other grant sources, so that is not a dead project. It is still being worked on. We have always said from the very outset of the master plan being developed and accepted, it is going to be long term, and we can't do anything without that extra funding. So we are looking at that funding. One of the reasons, I have said this before and I will reiterate it, one of the reasons the funding body did not accept our proposal was they want to see a multi-user facility, a multi-user foreshore building accessible 12 months of the year by a lot more people. So we are having to relook at our proposals and designs to try to ensure that we meet the criteria and we can get that funding. But that is certainly happening. We have a team working on that to get the results for our community. One that I always like to highlight is the local purchases. Every quarter we receive this information because Council has and will continue to always have a commitment to purchase from local suppliers. In the past quarter, until June 30th, we had 948 purchases. 563 of those were to local businesses, and that kept just over $1.6 million within the community. That's about 60% of the money that Council has spent has stayed within our city, which we're really pleased about. And of course, what we do have to get from out of town often are the very specialist purchases and services, like the new foreshore toilet that's going down at the foreshore, road sealing. Yeah, that work obviously has to come from outside. And now and again, and this was one of the occasions, we had to do some work on the crematorium at our cemetery, so all specialist services. Also, there is a very detailed 40-page report, and I don't expect everybody to read it word for word, but I do encourage you to go to the agenda on our website. It's from what the departments we call our corporate and city growth areas, and that covers regulatory services, tourism, events, visitor services, finance, people, culture, a whole lot more. I encourage residents to read that, to see exactly what your council, what the people of Whyalla that work for council have been doing in the last 3 months, and some of the work that's proposed. There's always a major report in just about every council agenda. I do encourage people to read that. And do I say, particularly to those Facebook users who from time to time will say, well, what's council really doing? Please read these reports. They are full of information and you'll definitely know what's going on in council. Finally, I think we owe a group of people a huge debt, and I would like to say personally and on behalf of council, and if I may on behalf of the city, the workers that ensured our blast furnace got back up and running and that we are again producing steel. I can't imagine the efforts that people have had to put in to get things back up and running. The city owes you a great deal of appreciation and gratitude. So to everybody involved out at the steelworks who had anything to do with getting things back up and running, thank you so very much. On that note, I'd better say cheers and we'll chat again after the next council meeting. Cheers.